Hello, darklings, lightlings, and hybrids, and everyone in between. How are you today? It is chilly. Got me a nice warm cappuccino here. So, today we are doing our next witch lore in the series, and we're doing Maryland today. And of course, I could not do this without talking about the infamous Blair Witch. I found so much on this one that I decided to just make the entire video about this specific story because there's a lot. There's a lot. I usually do 3 witch lore stories out of the states, but we're just going to do this one because, I found it fascinating what I found in my research. So, pause it, get your hot chocolate, tea, coffee, whatever, because it's going to get The Blair Witch Project was a found footage film that sparked the mystery and interest in everybody who's seen it. I remember back when it came out, I was quite young. I stayed up late one night to watch it, and I was completely freaked out. And it completely took over my fascination as well, and I always wanted to go visit the place, the woods. But I never got the chance. Maybe one day. Legends and lore of multiple versions of the story has circulated, capturing the minds of thrill seekers and paranormal investigators, and many who have visited these woods report experiences they had in their investigations while others came up short in theirs. What is the true story of the Blair Witch, or at least the true legend of the Blair Witch? And is it true? Is there any truth to it? And what started this whole legend? Where did it start? Well, we're going to explore that in my research and what I found today. In 1634, a colonel named Blair founded a fort in the colony of Maryland. He named it Blair after himself and used the fort against Native American attacks. Apparently, the natives were known for interrupting Colonel Blair's expeditions in the forest, the Black Hills Forest. Years went by, and eventually his fort expanded into an entire village and then a town, and more people began to reside there. In 1769, an Irish woman immigrated there by the name of Ellie Kedward. The story goes that her mother died in childbirth, and her father ended up being captured by revolts and was brutally tortured, then disemboweled while Ellie was forced to watch. So she had a horrific past. Some say that the captors had raped, beaten, and tortured her too, and left her for dead. What saved her was a solitary old hermit, and he brought her back to his place and nursed her back to health and healed her, and then later ended up teaching her things from the occult and magic and healing. When she went on her own, she ended up in a psychiatric hospital due to the trauma that had happened to her, and when she got out, she apparently turned to prostitution. But she also had a secret, and that was diving in deeper into the occult. It is not known if this is the truth or the real backstory of her. It's kind of hearsay passed down from word of mouth. When Ellie had left Ireland, she settled in Blair, Maryland, and in 1785, children accused her of witchcraft from the town of Blair. They said she drew their blood, and the town tried her, finding her guilty. They banished her from Blair into the bitter forest in the middle of winter. Other versions of the story say she was tied to a tree and left for dead in the forest in the middle of winter, but again, we don't know which one's real. Winter of the following year, All the children who accused her of witchcraft in the previous year had all vanished, leaving no sign or trace as to how they disappeared behind. Also, even more than half the town's other children began to vanish as well. The town suspected it was the result of the witch. Out of fear, they fled Blair, abandoning it and turning it into a ghost town for years. In 1809, a book about the Blair Witch was apparently published called The Cult of the Blair Witch, and there was an actual cult until the 1960s, and some say that they still may be existing today. In 1823, a man riding his horse who was working in the area got lost and ended up stumbling upon the old ghost town of Blair. Intrigued with it, he contacted Peter Burkett, asking him to survey the area. A year later, they founded the town as Burkittsville and resettled the land. Not long passed before they too started having experiences from the Blair Witch. In 1825, the town celebrated a feast, a large picnic to celebrate their harvest season. A little girl named Irene Treagle wandered from the picnic to play near a shallow Tappy East Creek, disappearing without a trace, except 11 people from the picnic claimed they saw a pale hand pull her under the water. This creek was only 6 inches deep, so you gotta wonder about what these people actually saw. Her body was apparently never found. A few days later, the creek became clogged with bundles of sticks, making water scarce in the town for that unlucky number of 13 days. The town blamed the Blair Witch, refusing to go near the water for years, believing it to be cursed. It seemed to be peaceful until 1886, when another girl named Robin Weaver went missing, but she soon returned to the town with a bizarre story of an encounter with a woman in the woods who levitated, never touching the forest floor. The woman took Robin to a house, making her go inside of the basement and leaving her there. And the little girl became scared and crawled out of the basement window to return to the village. A twist of events would happen, though, in this situation. Robin was home, but the men who set out to search for her when she was missing, they never returned. So more people set out to find the missing search party, and what they found would shake the entire town. They were all nude, tied up, and their bodies laid out with their heads meeting in the middle in the shape of a pentagram of a huge rock. They were disemboweled with symbols carved into their foreheads, hands, and feet. This rock is the infamous Coffin Rock. Those bodies ended up disappearing when the people who found it went back for help, and when everybody returned, they were gone. They had superstitions that it was the Blair Witch. I wonder if it wasn't that cult previously mentioned. In 1940, 8 more children went missing from Burkittsville. A hermit named Rustin Parr walked to town from the Black Hills chanting that he was, quote, finally done, finally finished. It could all end now. Police investigated his house in the secluded woods of the Black Hills, finding 7 bodies of the missing 8 children, all in the basement and in a horrific manner, where they appeared to be disemboweled and at different stages of decomposition. The 8th child was alive and well. Rustin said that after building his house in those woods, he started seeing a woman in black. But when he would try to engage with her, she would disappear. And the animals in the forest all acted strange and fearful just before she would appear and right after. When he would try to sleep at night, he would hear all kinds of noises and sounds, even of crying children and screaming and horrific whispers that would keep him awake all night. It wasn't long until the woman in black began to appear in his dreams, and he started to hear her voice in his head constantly, driving him into madness. She ordered him to do tasks for her, and in 1940 she told him to kidnap children, luring them to his house and then to the basement in pairs, where he would make one child stand in the corner while he murdered the other one. Could you friggin' imagine how horrifying that probably was? After he would murder the children, he would carve symbols into their flesh, just like the men on Coffin Rock. After killing the kids, the woman in black told him he was done, and if he went and told the town what he did, then she would leave him alone for good. So the man, in his desperation, ran to the town, confessing every detail of his deeds and of the woman in black, and how she forced him into doing this. He was eventually found guilty and hung. The town was relatively quiet up until 3 missing film students went there to make a documentary on Burkittsville's history. When the police launched an investigation, they found no trace of them except for their vehicle, and when they had investigated the woods, they found the foundation of Rustin's house and found these tapes underneath the foundation of the house, as if the house was built on top of it. So that's strange, because that's quite some years before these kids went missing that this foundation was built. Then not long after that, a phenomenon and a frenzy began happening in that town, where obsessed people were making Blair Witch hunts, and they would help tour people through the areas where the infamous murders or disappearances had taken place. Well, one man who ran one of these hunts ended up murdering another group that was apparently rivaling his tourist hunts, and that is when they made the Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2 based upon these murders. Some say the stories are true, and there are many who believe in it, but in my research, I did find that pretty much all of it is false. That the 3 students who had filmed the first movie all made up the history, the myths, the lore, the book that was written about the cult. And the town's historian was actually quite frustrated with them as well, accusing them of messing up the town's history. So, are they covering it up since there's so much craze over these stories and a lot of new visitors to that place since the movies came out? Or is there any truth to this lore? I'll let you be the judge, although I find it fascinating. Well, I love you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this.